Hey everybody, welcome back to the Woodworking Wisdom Workshops. My name's Colwin, and today's all about robots. We're carrying on with that sci-fi theme and just having a bit of fun on the lathe. The title's called Fun on the Lathe, Making Robots. So there's nothing to overthink here. Most of the robots that I tend to make don't have a function apart from sitting on the shelf and looking nice, a bit of a paperweight. However, I do have a couple of robots that we're going to show you today. These are smoking robots. So if you have ever made a German smoker or seen me make German smokers or seen or bought any German smokers, you'll understand what I mean. So we're going to keep on this camera just for the minute and just going to lift his top off. So when I say German smokers, basically what they are is incense burners. So we put the incense cone in here, the smoking man top goes on, and then the smoke or the incense comes out, usually from the mouth. And I'm going to show you some pictures in a minute which show that. But in this case of our robots, this is little steampunk robots. It's coming out of the chimney stack on its shoulder. Ben's on cameras and pictures and questions today. So any questions that you got, just ask Ben. And as much as today is all about robots, or today is all about robots, I'm showing you these smoking men. However, don't get too caught up in the smokers thing, because when it gets a little bit more festive, we're going to have a two-parter on making your own smoker. And the smokers we're going to look at then is probably something like some wood turners. So Ben, could you go to the wood turners? Wood turner smoking men is what we're about after all. I say smoking men, ladies. You can of course make a smoking lady if you want to. I haven't, well, I have done a couple of ladies actually, but in this case we're just looking at the easier to make male figures, because I don't have to worry about hair and things like that. I can keep them all bold without offending anybody, you see. So here's a couple of wood turning smoking men. So you can see there the mouth where the smoke comes out. Of course they've got Colwin signature skews in their hands. What else would they have? So those are a couple for the future, going into the end of November, early December. And we're also now going to just the picture of the two robot smokers, Ben, I think. So this is the ones that we're just looking at today. What I want to look at, because the theme is all about robots, what I want to look at is the difficult parts for a robot. In the case of the ones we're looking at the moment, we've got the bent arms, we've got the rolled legs there that you can see. And we got the chimney stack. So I'm going to go over those pieces really. However, if you didn't want to make a smoker, you wanted to go into another type of robot. Here's one that I made a few years ago now for Wood Turning magazine. This was just a crazy 5 minutes, just having a little bit of fun. And we've done a little bit of a story with this one. This our robot comes from the planet Cocobolo. He's gone a little bit crazy because he's turned one too many bowls. So he's his mouth is sort of grimacing there. His eyes are all over the place. But they are exactly that. They're fun. And if you're turning with grandchildren, with children, nephews and nieces, then that's what it's all about. It's having a little bit of fun on the lathe and not just turning another bowl. As much as bowls are fun, you know, we like to diversify a little bit. So with all that being said, don't forget, ask me questions. I hope as much as anything else from these videos that it spurs a few questions. We solve a few problems, and work holding on the lathe is a thing, you know, tool presentation is a thing, how we resolve issues and problems. So that's what we're going to do. So we got our first question from Ben. Yes.
So just a quick one from Frederick. He says, thanks very much for your advice. He's got his lathe sorted.
Hey.
And a question here from Cliff. How did you paint your robots?
The robots, well, we're coming to that that period of the year now where I can show you all about painting and decorating and glitter and all those wonderful, colorful things. And I do a lot of airbrushing. These particular ones were brushed on. In the next few weeks, we're going to go over some effect paints and how to create different metal effects, all those sorts of things. So most of that was brush. The gold one here was spray. So this was aerosol. I use a lot of aerosol, different sort of effect paints. There's particular ones that I use more than others. And again, I'll bring those in to show you exactly what the makes are. The makes escape me for the minute, but there's a certain range that I use more than often. But then all the details picked out by brush as well. So as well as doing the sprays, we're using brushes to get all the fine detail in. And there's a few bits bought, you know, like watchmakers, a little bag of watch cogs, those sorts of things. You know, there's so many different things that you can get to, you know, to embellish these things. And purposely wanted to make these sort of steampunk-ish. And it's a combination of things that I've taken from films, from movies, from documentaries, from just searching on the web for sci-fi, for robots, for spaceships, all those sorts of things. You know, just subconscious stuff as well. You know, there's someone pointed out to me the other day that the legs look like Robbie the Robot legs. Exactly that, without realizing, you know, you're sort of copying things from what you would have seen it either as a child or recently on movies and things. So that's what I like. You will see if you search robots on the web, from the top, from his belly up, this one, you'll see this sort of formula as a pen and ink drawing, and that's where I got the inspiration to do that from. So there's all sources for inspiration. And painting effects, you can really go crazy. It allows you to do whatever you want. They're not toys. This is a very important thing. They are not toys, because the regulations that you have to follow when you start making toys for children to potentially put in their mouth is, you know, it's going to stop you from doing lots of paint effects, putting lots of intricate pieces on it. So definitely not toys. They are for the top shelf, not for playing with. So this is a smoker. So again, definitely not for playing with. They're an incense burner primarily. However, the fun robots, of course, go with paints that are child friendly. Rust-Oleum's a good one. It's a toy safe product. And you can get many of those. I got a feeling Plasticoat has the toy safe label on it as well. But just do your research, look for toy safe, then you know that you're going to be fine. Be careful what adornments you put on. If it can be broken off and put in the mouth and swallowed, then don't put it on in the first place. That's the best advice I can give. All right. So keep the questions coming. Really, really welcome. It helps me through the demonstration. We're going to go back to that sanding table in a moment, but I thought we would start. Let's pretend I'm going to start you off. So just to spur on a few questions, we're going to start by making the smoker base, and we're going to do a little stand. We're going to make the feet. Then we're going to do the legs, the little rolled legs. And then I want to look at how we do the chimney stacks, how we bend things, or not bend, but give the appearance of bent chimney stacks, of bent arms, all that sort of stuff. But like I say, just keep firing those questions. So let's keep referring back to our smoker here. And I'm going to take its body off just for the moment. I haven't put the incense cone holder on this one yet. So at the moment, this is almost finished, but on this section here, we have a little holder that just stops the hot incense cone as it burns down from touching the timber. Now, I specifically buy those from Germany for incense burners for smoking men, or Räuchermen as they're known in Germany. I used to use old bottle caps and burn off the paint, but it became a little bit fiddly, so I buy the real thing now, which saves me a lot of time. So this is what we're going to do first. I'm just going to do that section, really. It's not particularly difficult, this one, but we'll start with the base. We'll then go on to the feet, to the legs, and we'll just do this little bit here, because I think this is quite a good selection of work holding solutions that we can cover, or just on that piece there, you see. So, and we'll put it all together whilst we're going, of course. So let's start with the base. The base, a bit of timber. So you could use this sort of technique in trophy bases, in stands for any of your other work, as if you wanted to sort of elevate it for any reason. And I've got here, I just wanted a big enough set of jaws that would hold the external diameter of that piece of timber. So I was looking at a slightly smaller set, and they were going to be, I'd have to have put them to the farthest extreme to grip that. So now this is the Dove G, what we call a Dove G. It's a gripper jaw, and it's perfect. We've got a good grip on that piece. Ben, can you do that? So you can see that the gap that I've got here is very similar to the one that we've got here. So it's very central as well. But I'm gripping with a massive amount of surface area. What I want to do is create a little recess. So this is the underside of the base, and this is what we're going to create here. So just smooth that off, little recess for my OD jaws. Then I can go through the whole batch and turn to a finish. Yes, Ben.
Okay, so a question from Paul for both of us, actually. He's saying, first of all, where did you get the tea lights or the candles for your Christmas pyramids?
Okay, so at the moment as a company, we don't sell those, so I won't get into trouble by saying you can get them from my website, and that's colwinwaywoodturner.com. Go on there, they'll be available from the hardware shop on my website. That's colwinwaywoodturner.com. Ben's laughing his head off.
And then for Paul as well, of course, we can send you a photo of the rocking horse. We haven't had any plans, but I can send you a photo of what we worked from. And of course, to Martin, we'll do a scroll saw tutorial on problem solving soon.
Excellent. Okay, let's start then. So I'm just going to skim this underside. So it's a piece of oak, by the way. It doesn't matter what it's flapping around a little bit at the moment. It doesn't matter because we're about to make it nice and round and nice and flat. Okay, so I'm going to go straight in with a little 1/4-inch bowl gouge, which I have mixed up. Little 1/4-inch bowl gouge. I'm going to go to the center and then drag back out. This project, if you were going to do a smoker, I would do a couple, do 2 or 3. Going to do robots, do a couple, because the decorating of them afterwards is probably, for me, it's the best bit. And you'll start painting one color and you think, oh, I wonder what it looked like in another color. So it gives you opportunity. If you do several at a time, you can mess around with colors with different adornments on it. You know, you can have a little bit of fun, like I said, and that's exactly what it's all about. So all I'm doing here is just tidying up the underside, making it flat, or if not flat, very slightly dished. But we're going to have a recess. I've already set my dividers to the jaws I'm going to use, and they're going to be a set of O'Donnell 112s. So they're 32 millimeter inside diameter at their optimum. But those are the jaws, and we're going to use the external grip on those. And I'm just going to use my dividers now. Let's give myself a center point. Look, with a pencil. Hover over center, but scribe the outside. There we are. So that's a recess we need to make. So we're going to start with parting tool. Don't need to go overly deep on this either. I mean, there's not a huge amount of stress on the jaws. This is a small project, so we're not creating loads of stress. So I'm going to go 2 to 3 mil deep. I don't want a massive recess on the bottom. So there we are. Now we're going to use the small bowl gouge. This is a 6 mil, so a 1/4-inch bowl gouge, just to take the waste away. But when I'm nearly there, we'll go to our skew. Let's go to a smallish skew and just flatten off, create my dovetail using the angle of the skew. I'm not overly fussy with the angle as long as it is dovetailed. Take away any little areas I don't want. And I'm going to just, because it's side grain, I can get away with doing a nice gentle scrape with what essentially is a negative rate scraper in the form of the skew. So there we are. Pop that back to one side. Now, I'm not going to sand today. You don't need to sand. You don't want to watch me sand for too long. There's lots to cover today. So I'm just going to pretend that we've sanded and we've sanding sealed. So if you're putting aerosol paints or brushed paints over the surface of timber, it's very important that you sanding seal everything. What I tend to do also is put a primer underneath. And generally that primer will be a grey spray primer. And that will really help you with your other colors. So just spray everything grey, unless you're keeping them timber or you're going transparent with your colors. Now, when it comes to doing the real smoker demos, we'll show you some transparent finishes. So you've actually got the grain of the wood coming through, and they lend themselves to certain characters within the smoker range as well. There's done a range of Vikings, and having those nice earthy transparent colors works really well on those. Obviously on robots it wouldn't work. We want really strong, bold metallics and metally sort of effects. So I want to seal and prime this really. Yes, Ben.
So a question from Alan. What is the best chuck for a 1-inch 12 TPI thread?
A 1-inch by 12 TPI. depending on the physical size of the machine, so when I'm talking physical size, I mean motor size and what you can throw over the bed, I would go for the smaller benchtop machines up to this size. I would go for the SK100. If you're talking this size and up, then I would definitely go for the 114. So the 114 is the one I'm using. The SK100 is slightly smaller. It's a little bit lighter. Okay, different chuck key on it, but again, a massively high accuracy on these for wood turning accuracy anyway, and a whole heap of jaws available for both these. Both of the jaws will fit the same chuck. If I want to swap these over, I can put them on there, for instance. But it's just a bit smaller than the SK114, and like I say, if it's a benchtop machine, it's probably better going for the 100. But bigger machines go for the 114 all of the time. Yes, Ben.
So it's a MyFord MLA.
A MyFord MLA, go for the SK100 because as nice as the machine is, and that was the first lathe I ever owned, by the way. As nice as the machine is, it's not got a massive swing over the bed. You've got that round bed bar, and I can't remember. I think it must be around about 10 inches swing over the bed. You don't need to go to a big chuck. You know, you're just adding more weight and adding more distance. So stick to that 100. Even if you're using it on the back, bearing in mind it's the left-hand thread on the back, not the same as on the front. So yeah, 100 I would go for.
And then John's saying, considering the robots are painted, would it be okay to use a softer redwood, or would hardwood be preferable? So
what the difference is, and I've been caught out with this several times, softer woods do absorb more liquid. So I would not dilute the sanding sealer at all, keep it thick, and probably put a couple of coats on, sand it back between. Very, very important to put a primer on a softwood because it just absorbs so much on the end grain. So as much as, yes, you can use softwoods, you'll have a little bit of a harder time in the decoration afterwards and the painting. Okay, you have to put more coats, more layers on, basically.
And then Maria's just asked me to give you a nudge about the thin parting tool.
Oh, I forgot all about it, Maria. Maria, just put that question back down again, because we were speaking about it in the week, weren't we? And it was about sharpening, and it was the crown parting tool, 1/16. I'm guessing it was the crown parting tool that looks like a knife. Again, I am always going to be using a diamond file for that sort of thing. The trouble with 1/16 thick, if you introduce something like a grinder, you're going to blue it straight away. And also, we don't want to be using that sort of a wheel on that sort of thing, because you create too much of a concave grind. So always go for a diamond sharpening stone. Absolutely. If I'm wrong about that, Maria, and it's not the very deep one from Crown, then let me know, and we'll work on from there. All right. I really apologize. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's just put our other jaw back on. So this is the OD114. And we've made our recess, so we're just going to expand onto the recess. Like I said, you know, I do prefer doing batches of things. And if you're going to spend the time changing a chuck over to put the base on, we may as well have 3 or 4 bases to do. We may have as well have 3 or 4 legs and so on. So look, now we've got that held, we're all free. We can clean up. So let's do the outside edge first. I'm going to skim toward this face. So I'm going to cut that way, purely because if we get any breakout, I want to be able to take it off and clean it up. And we've already cleaned this surface up, so I don't want to do that. So again, we're going to go with 1/4 inch bowl gouge, lathe speed to 0, turn the lathe on, and then turn the speed up. Just because we've changed the chuck, we've changed everything. And nice and quick on this one. So we're up to 1800 revs. Handle really, really low. And I'm going to do what we call a skew cut. So the flute of the gouge is facing well over toward 3 o'clock. And I'm using the bottom edge of the gouge almost like a skew chisel. So we're shearing away the timber. That's going to give you your best possible finish. And you can see the sort of shavings that are coming off there. They are planer shavings. Oh. They are planer shavings. Okay, so they're nice long shavings. That's what we want. We know that if we're getting planer shavings off, that the finish is going to be a good one. If you're getting chips off, probably not going to be that brilliant. So let's have a look. Well, we've still got a little bit of a flat here. So just another couple of passes. Here we are, all good. Let's have a look and see what we're dealing with. This surface is already clean. Well, not clean, but it's already flat. And what I tend to do, and you'll see this in a minute when we move to the top of this base, if you can plane, if you have the ability to put something through a thicknesser, so basically if you have a planer thicknesser, then you can thickness things already down to size. That'll clean up both of these surfaces prior to turning, which really, really helps. It means you only have to do the edges. And again, later on, some of the projects that I'm going to be looking at, things like Christmas carousels, that's going to be heavily based on being able to plane before you start turning. So look out for that one. Okay, let's give this just a little skim. I know I said it's all ready to go, but just to take off that little bit of burring over the edge, I'm going to go to a bigger skew chisel before we move on. And then again, huge sand. Once sanded, that's finished. Let me get the sanding tables just to show you where we are now. So everything relies on your smoker being stable on the table, as Ben would say. So there we are. We've got our base. So then use a template, and I template everything so I can repeat and repeat and repeat. This template is giving me the splay of the legs. You need to make sure that your bottom of the legs matches the top of the legs, otherwise your smoker's going to be falling over and look as though he's drunk. So that's quite important. So a little bradawl mark in there. I'll then quickly drill that off camera. There we are. Can I see that mark? Just there we are. So let me just quickly drill that for you. And the templates are just a bit of card. Look, it's a bit of my cornflakes packet. But that's all they are. And it don't have to be anything grand. You can use things like Foamex. This is the Signwriter's material. Foamex is quite good. I use that for a lot of resin mold making because it's quite pliable, but quite stiff at the same time. I'll just drill our base out and then we'll start building. Just got a little craft drill beside me. Which is all you need really for this sort of thing. We're not doing any big drillings. This is all fairly small stuff. There we are. So we got the first bit done. A little bit of sanding on there, put it back on and give it a sand. It's going to be covered up. When you put this sort of thing together, again, I've mentioned dowel before, and what I tend to go with now is fluted dowel. And the reason being, if we look at both of them, I'll get a couple of bits out. So there's a non-fluted bit of beech dowel, and there's a fluted bit of beech dowel. The difference between them, this, if you get a 6mm drill, fluted beech dowel, if you non-fluted beech dowel, if you go in too far, it's very difficult to get in with the addition of glue, because glue will swell the fibers. But fluted dowel, you got that glue, it's able to sort of spill out up through the flutes, and it's a much easier easier join when you're putting things together. So that would fit in there, for instance. Okay, we'll put another one in there. Okay, I've already drilled out the feet because I held them in a clamp earlier. So they're feet, and we need to create the shape for those. Now, again, everything's templated out. I haven't got my template here, so I have got an old foot that I've already made that I've used to draw around for our feet. So I'm just going to sand those out now. So once again, we're going to just change chucks just for a little moment, and we're going to go back to the C-jaws and add our sanding table. If you're making anything like this, any multi-piece turnings, and over the past couple of weeks, we've covered a lot of multi-piece turnings. So the spaceships, the mobile last week, these robots, we're going to do more next week as well with our fantasy figures. Then sanding table like this and the addition of a sanding disc to your lathe really saves you so much time. And it's just all so easy, you know, especially with the C-jaws expanding to that recess, and look, you can put whatever sanding disc you want on there. You can make your sanding disc suit the size that you're of the disc you're going to buy. And this sanding table has saved me a huge amount of time, and I use it all of the time as well. Look, all it is the stem from the Axminster tool rest system, the carving plate, which I've just attached to a piece of either MDF or high density fiberboard, and then put the collar where the center height of the lathe is, so it just goes in and stays in the same place each time. I don't have to do anything else. Yes, Ben, another question.
So this is going back to the parting tool. Frederick's just he said, wouldn't a concave grind on a thin parting tool is a concave grind on a thin parting tool not a good idea? He would have thought that a bird's beak point would cut better as it removes wood more efficiently.
You're dead right. The only issue I have with them on a parting tool is they can be quite aggressive, and the rest of that surface will grab the timber as you're cutting, where a regular parting tool is a negative rake, so it's not that aggressive. So you've got to be quite careful with that. It's a hook at the end of the day, and you'll have big faces of concave sharp edge that just want to bounce and crash around. I would always go with a regular grind to a parting tool personally. You see them a lot though, what you're describing. You do see a lot on engineering lathes, so metal cutting lathes for parting off. You'll have a hook type a parting tool on those, but not my preference personally. I just find them a little bit too aggressive. That's all. And also the other thing, if you're grinding a concave grinding all the time, you're taking so much material away. You think about where you're sharpening that type of a parting tool, especially on a 16th. They won't last very long with constant grinding. So I would stick to the diamond tools and just give it a hand sharpen. All right. Okay, so we're going to put the dust extractor on, and we're just going to sand these to shape. I don't know whether the camera can quite pick that up, the pencil marks yet. No, we're getting it. So we're just going to sand to shape very quickly because there's lots to show you today. Okay, so here it goes. So lathe speed to 0, turn the lathe on. And it's as simple as just sanding to your pencil marks. Again, do a cardboard template for this. You want to repeat this many times. You know, even if your cardboard template, when you start sanding, you change the shape slightly. You want to vary the shapes. It gives you the rough sort of shape straight away. And then you can customize it to suit the figure you're making. There we are. There's our basic foot shape. We'll do the other one because we're going to put our base together. My sanding disc has seen better days. Could do with a change to the disc on here. Yeah, well, the other good thing with this sanding disc, or these types of sanding discs, you can use the different areas of the disc for different things. So in the center, obviously, it's rotating a little bit slower, or the surface speed is slower. So you'll get a much finer sand than if you go to the extreme of the outside here where it's whipping over the workpiece. There we are. That's done. Take away the burrs. Then we're going to just taper the front of our foot. Okay, so you can turn them up the other way. Don't go too crazy here because the leg still has to join. If you want to get really adventurous, you could split turn the legs and the feet so you get two halves of the identical shape. There we are. There's our feet. I'll just show you the side profile of those so you get a nice dip for the toes. Okay, that's it. So we can start building things now. So I'm not quite sure whether they're going to be a little bit too long, those dowels, but let's go with it. There we are. There we are. Okay, so now all we have to do is turn the legs, and then we've almost got that base done. So like I said, this is the sort of thing that I'm copying. I just want to go over the beaded sort of shape that we have here just to help you understand. We're going to use a small beading and parting tool to do this, but you need support. You need support from your set of dividers, otherwise your beads are going to be completely different. And when you're trying to do two things close together like that have to be the same, the slightest little difference makes a difference. You'll spot it, you know. So the pieces for the legs have already been prepped. I've drilled those out this morning. Get rid of that. And so what we have, I've been using sycamore in this case, but maple or sycamore works really, really well. And look, what I've done is put a hole either end. You can put a hole right the way through if you want to, but just a hole either end. And we're going to drive with those holes. We need to make sure that they're both the same length before you start putting any embellishments on them. Otherwise, again, your smoker's going to be, or your robot's going to be a little bit drunk when you carry on. And even if you're not doing a smoker, this is the way to make those legs, because you don't have any big centers in the way. You can really clean off those ends, and you need to join them somehow. So using dowel will make it far more far easier to turn. Let's go with a smaller tool rest. Okay, and we're going to use single pointed center on the headstock and on the tailstock. So if you remember, these have been around for ages now. These are what we refer to as a Lightpool Drive, friction Lightpool Drive. They are designed to be used on things that already have a hole in the center. So you've got lots of steps, different diameters, and with a taper on the end of each diameter, so you can use those in a pre-drilled blank. Perfect for this sort of stuff. But as its name suggests, it's a Lightpool Drive for driving light pools, which are all pre-drilled. It's important that you pre-drill things, because otherwise you have no guarantee that your hole that you're drilling is going to be centered. If you'll turn around the hole that you've drilled, then you know that's going to be the center of your turning. So we're going to go, again, that single pointed sensor. Okay. That's nice and firm. Now, high speed is what this is about. If we can get a good speed on this, there's less friction to the workpiece. So your tool delivers less friction. And that means that it'll keep spinning. There's only driving through friction, remember. So if you try and take a big roughing gouge to this, it'll just stop. It'll just spin on that center. So it's quite important. Lathe on, turn them. I want to be up over 2,000 revs to 2,500 maybe. One of those rare occasions where you get to use a nice fast speed from your machine. And we're going to go a little 1/4 inch bowl gouge, do the roughing down first with the bowl gouge. Then we're going to use that skew cut again. So we're down to a cylinder, so now I can drop the handle, use the bottom of the gouge as a skew chisel. Now I'm actually going to get the skew, so we're going to go for the little 12mm skew, and I'm going to create my taper. So we taper the leg down toward the feet. That'll do us, and then trim the ends. So quite a nice little practice for your skew skills. The other good thing with a friction drive like this, if you do happen to get a catch with your skew, it does happen, the piece will stop. So that catch doesn't get driven in too deep. There's a really nice way of practicing skew chisel work as well. As soon as the catch develops, the workpiece will stop. There we are. So that's clean and ready to shape. So we're going to create a few beads on here. I did say that we're going to use a beading and parting saw. I'm not quite sure whether we are. We might use a skew. But look, set your dividers. I've got an offset pair of dividers, but that's all right. And this is the way we keep our our little beads the same. Like I say, very important, because in a minute we're going to have two legs stood next to each other, and so you'll see the slightest little difference. Once you've done that, then you can go in with your skew chisel to start with and increase the depth of those lines. And then you can start rolling. Whether you choose to use a beading and parting tool, whether you choose to use a skew chisel, is entirely up to you. But it would be the heel and you roll in. So we're going to do that again. Heel and you roll in. I'm going to go all the way up using, or doing the left-hand side of the beads. And then we'll go up to the right. Here we are. And then you can sand again. One thing I would say about sanding here, just go to camera number 2 a minute, Ben, just while I move things around. Okay. One thing I would say about sanding on this sort of profile is when you bend your paper, I'm not going to sand, but when you bend your paper over, look, so there's a piece of abrasive. I like to do that, but then very slightly bend it again, because that stiffens up this corner here, and that can then get into that detail. If you turn it over and use the creased edge, that will round over the bottoms of those little V cuts and won't look very good. So use a crisp cut edge, but firm it up by bending it against its natural curve, and then you can get in there and keep everything really, really quite nice and crisp. The other thing, of course, is when you finish sanding, go back to your skew and just very lightly put the toe of the skew into the bottom of that V cut, and that will help, again, crisp everything up at the end. So there we are, 2 of those required. You may have noticed there that as well as doing the beads, that we tidied up each end. And so the first thing that you would need to do now when you do the second one is to get your taper going, but then cut it to size, trim to make sure they're both identical in size, then put in your detail with your dividers. Okay, so that's the legs. That's how we do the legs. Now I want to go over the next section. I'm not going to go into the incense holder, because that will be for when we make the smokers. We're going to spend a proper amount of time, 2 sessions, making one smoker. So we'll go into it then with a little bit more detail. What I want to do is just concentrate back toward the robots and how, in this instance, we would make the bendy arms, and in this case, the bendy chimney here. So we're just going to look at that. And I've got 2 options for you when it comes to this, one turned and one not. But certainly for this one here, we need to turn, because there's a lot of shape on this. And it's probably far easier or simpler than it first looks. So let me just have a little bit of a tidy around of our tools. Now, one thing I'd like just to discuss with you now, just stepping away from the robots, just briefly, is an event that we've got, or not Axminster event, that Worshipful Company of Turners, RPT, and supported by the AWGB have got coming up. It's in London, in the city of London, and it's called Wizardry in Wood. Now, myself and Jason have very fortunately been invited to exhibit here. And there's 14 exhibitors. Myself and Jason are 2 of them, but we've got some fantastic turners up there. As well as the exhibits, you've also got lots of demonstrations going on. And there are the dates, guys. If you're in the UK, if you find yourself around London, or you can get to London, have a look. We've got the link to the website on this video, so click on there. Tickets are available on there also. I think tickets are £10 each or £18 for a couple. And you can see there from Wednesday to the Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Come and have a chat with us if you are around. It's a fantastic event. It's in a very historic part of London, right in the centre, in a wonderful hall, Carpenter's Hall. It's the home of wood turning in the UK, and the Worshipful Company's place of residence. So yeah, it'd be lovely to see you there and have a chat face to face if you're in the country, of course. Okay, let's move on. Let's do some bendy turning. Oh, actually, it's not bendy turning. We give the impression that it's bendy, but all we're going to do is turn a nice shape and then just cut it open. So let's go with a set of our step jaws. I hesitated then because I wasn't sure whether these are going to open up far enough. I want them to open up just to grip a square bit of timber. That might give me the answer. Will that fit in there? That's quite lucky. So this is a set of step jaws. I use these for holding drill bits, any small turnings, dowel, that sort of stuff. Here we're going to make a little chimney stack. I'm going to use the tailstock to start with to do the main shape. This is far bigger piece of timber than I need, so we're going to cut them down quite a long way. Lathe speed to 0, turn the lathe on. We'll get that bowl gouge back out. I want to go fairly quick, about 2,000 revs. There we are, rough down to start with. Okay, before I go too far, I'm going to start creating the stack at the top. So I still need some support here. Right, we'll take that off in a second. First of all, let's get the rest of the detail in. So skew. So just refining that detail a little bit. Then we'll have the main section. Now you're going to be cutting this to a specific drill size because these are going to fit into the turning. And I'm just guessing at the moment. So nice and long because we're going to cut this. There we are. That'll do us. Right, let's finish off this area here. I'm going to go to a spindle gouge for that because now we're getting quite fine. Can't take the tailstock away just yet. Now we can take the tailstock away. And again, this is the point where you would sand. Normally, we're not going to sand. I'm just going to show you how to create the bend. So let's Get rid of that. We're going to go back to, in fact, let me get rid of some of these tools. And this, to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter the size that the size of turning that you're creating here. If you've seen me do nutcracker soldiers, things with bent arms, this is done in exactly the same way. It's no difference. So we're going to have some help from the sander in a moment, but we're going to start off with our little pull saw. This is quite a coarse pull saw for what I'm doing, and I would go with one of the smaller ones in terms of the fine teeth. Because you can see here, this is quite coarse, but go with one of the finer teeth ones. We do loads and loads of pull saws. They're really nice for turners because they give you the means to do all of these sorts of things. So what we're going to do in a minute, we're going to put that on that way. So that's that one. Let's go. So I want to then bend back that way. Do that. And then this one can stay straight. So I've got 3 pieces. We're going to have a nice bendy stack. So what I like to do now, we're going to mix some glue up and glue it together in a minute. I just want to show you how quick this is, because it really is that easy. You know, most glues, when you glue something together, you got to wait, you got to put it in a clamp and all those sorts of things. Epoxy in this sort of scale is great. It has that initial tack is fantastic. You push it together and it just holds itself. And I do an awful lot of gluing with epoxy for that very reason. So we're going to go back with a C-jaw and my sanding disc. You can put the table on for this. You don't have to, because we're only doing one flat surface and it's not aligned with anything in particular. Yes, Ben, question.
So question from Mr. Weather. It says they're just starting out in turning, having inherited an old lathe. What extractor do you use? They want one solely for the lathe and lathe sanding. Good filtration and quiet as possible. Yeah,
quite. The issue is the quietness. Most extractors, or all extractors I know of, if they're in the same room as you, will be noisy. You can't hear my extractor because these mics are great at leveling sound, so they turn off all the external sound. I use a variety of extractors depending on my location. At home, I have a cyclone type extractor, very big because it's plumbed in, and it takes care of my bandsaw, my lathe, benchtop working as well, planer thicknesser. So I need it to do an awful lot of things. In here, we're using 2. We're actually using a Craft cyclone extractor, which is next to me, and we've also got a Craft double bag fine dust extractor as well. My best advice to you would look at, so first of all, you've got budget to think about. You've also got the physical size of your dust extractor to think about. You can add fine filtration to most extractors, I would say. Fine filtration will come in either bags, so a fine weave bag, or a cartridge, or completely enclosed like a vacuum extractor. You have different pitches of noise with each of those extractors, and they get louder the bigger they get generally. So those are your things to think about. Most extractors can be used on the lathe. However, the ones I would always advise are ones that create a faster air speed. So create more air movement. Once you get more air movement, the speed goes up. So that creates more suction from further away of the nozzle. Vacuum extractors, for instance, are a case in question. If you think of a vacuum extractor, it creates that vacuum within itself. And so suction at the nozzle is great. It's really, really quite vicious. But as soon as you move away, it dissipates completely. That's why a bag type or a cyclone type is better for us wood turner, because we're sucking from all over the place. We're not plugged into anything. Okay, so that's my advice. All right, there we are. So where are we? We're doing a bendy stack. So lathe speed is 0, turn the lathe on, and we're just going to tidy the cut end. Let's just turn my extractor. I know it's only a little bit of sanding, but save mine and Ben's lungs. we are. Right, so I'm going to get the sanding table back on here and just demonstrate this glue, what it can do, because I think it's fantastic stuff. There's two types available. I'm not saying that just because I want to show you some glue. I'm saying that because this is what I'm using at the moment, preparing for Wizardry and Wood, probably using it every single day, and have been for the past couple of months. But then we'll put a block down so I don't mess up my sanding table. So there we are, Z-POXY. Z-POXY, really, really strong. This particular one's 5 minute, but you get a 30-minute one as well. If you're doing large areas, then definitely go for the 30-minute, because when it says 5 minute on the box, it means it. Let's get a little bit of my dowel. 50-50 mix. There we are. It's one of those things. In the winter, it'll go quite hard and difficult to get out. In the summer, it's very liquid. So it's definitely a one to keep inside the house rather than in a cold workshop. 50-50. Guess is good. Absolutely fine. Don't need to worry. It's not like epoxy resin where you have to be quite precise. Epoxy glue is a little bit more forgiving. Give it a good mix up. There we are, and we can start literally just butt jointing these together. Really, really strong bond. So don't worry thinking that it might come apart. It won't. So your initial tack, push together, get a bit more. Push together really hard and it will stay there. All right, so we've got that initial tack. I'm going to do one more join for the other bit. Where we're going to put that there. Same thing, push together. And then once you've got it there, it literally is a case, just leave it for that 5 minutes, let it dry, then come back and sand. So at this stage, don't worry about any spillages that you have. If you've got a little bit oozing out those joints, don't worry about them. Let it dry, and it's only 5 minutes, let it dry, and then give it a hand sand and blend in the corners. So take the sharpness away from the corners. And that will give you a real impression of a bendy pipe or a bendy arm, that sort of thing, once you start painting over the top. If you don't paint over the top, if you're going transparent, or if you're keeping it as timber, again, by hand sanding, you get rid of all the surplus glue, and you won't see, it disguises the join sort of thing. All right, so I think there, Ben, I think that will be it for today. Like I say, we're going to do a full 2 sessions on making your German smokers, but can we just have a look at the other robots again? So let's just say, give people an idea of what they can do. Look back at this video again, just to give you a few ideas. So there's our tin men. So that's a before and after, a shiny and a weathered one. And then our crazy robot from Coca-Cola. There we are, those sorts of things. They don't have to be functional. They can just be fun. You don't have to always make something to use. You can just make something because it makes you smile, that sort of thing. So any more questions, Ben, before we sign off for the day? We're all good. Guys, thanks ever so much again for watching. Don't forget, I say it every time, if you like what we've done for you, then give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, share with as many people as you can, and definitely check out Wizardry and Wood. It's a fantastic event to go to if you want a bit of inspiration. Like I say, there's some many great wood turners there and great demonstrations happening. So until next time, guys, thank you very much. See you again. Bye-bye.